All right, welcome on into the Wolverine TV. I'm Clayton Sayfie with Chris Balas and Austin Fox from the Wolverine.com. Use the promo code BLUE60 at the Wolverine.com for 2 months of our premium content for free. You get all the updates on the message board, interact with thousands of Michigan fans there. We'll talk about the staff shakeup for Michigan football, which is ongoing, and developments pretty much daily here as the time progresses. Jim Harbaugh signed his contract extension just over a week ago, and things are kind of moving here. Some guys in the NFL still, are going to take, jobs with Michigan, but can't officially be named, as an assistant coach at Michigan since they are coaching in the playoffs here. And then we'll get to hoops, this Michigan basketball team. That's what I'm looking forward to talking about, guys. I mean, this Michigan basketball team's incredible. But we'll start with just overall thoughts on Jim Harbaugh signs. Well, first of all, the development was the Mike Macdonald as the defensive coordinator. Then Harbaugh signs. That was a great indicator. And then, basically Mike Hart comes, but let's just start with the Harbaugh extension and what that kind of means.
There were a lot of indicators before Mike Macdonald, if we're being honest, when Sharon Moore was turning down offers and other guys as well. Ed Warner had some offers. I know that people were interested in him. So there was a pretty good indication that Jim Harbaugh was coming back like he said he was going to. Maybe he was negotiating a little bit more money. I know I would have if my salary was cut in half, regardless of what's going on during a pandemic. I mean, yeah, he's betting on himself, and there are a lot of incentives in there so he can make more money. But for crying out loud, man, that's quite the pay cut. Let's be honest here. So going to be very interesting to see when Mike Macdonald comes on staff, who comes with him. And he is coming, by the way. We confirmed that a while ago. We were the first ones actually to mention his name. And he was actually a young up-and-comer who was being sought out by a lot of NFL teams, guys, from what we understand. It's not like John Harbaugh is trying to dump him off on his brother. And that's the funniest one on the message board now. It's like, oh, why, if he's so good, then why doesn't John Harbaugh want to keep him? Well, he knows he can't keep him, so he's giving him an opportunity and doing his brother a solid. But I like him. I like Jesse Minter as the cornerbacks coach. I think he's going to be good. I think that's going to happen. Who else stays? That's what's going to be interesting. It doesn't look like Mike Zordich will be back now, and we still have to see with the other coaches as well. But I like the energetic young staff. They've got a lot to prove, but you know what? It is what it is. It's different than, and better, in my opinion, than bringing in some retread here just because he's got a name.
Yeah, I like the fact that Harbaugh seems to be trying to get a little bit younger on this staff with Mike Macdonald and Jesse Minter and Mike Hart. A lot of these guys are in their 30s. I think they're going to be good recruiters. We've heard good things about them. They have ties down south. Mike Macdonald went to Georgia. He coached at Georgia. Jesse Minter was defensive coordinator at Georgia State for a while, so it's good to have those Southern ties. Obviously, we know what Mike Hart's done as a running backs coach already. He has an incredible track record, whether it's at Eastern Michigan or Western Michigan or Indiana. He's developed 1,000-yard rushers every stop he's been, with the exception of Syracuse, where he was only at for 1 year. So I think some staff shakeup was needed after this past season's 2-4 disaster. So again, it's good to see these good young guys coming on board, and I think that's really going to bring some much needed energy and enthusiasm back into the program and on the recruiting trail.
Let me add about Mike Hart. I think this guy is perfect for this job. And when he was here, Clayton, I think you were probably about 3 years old, but
he was my favorite player.
Was he really? Did you have the little jersey, like the size 3T? You're running around there.
I did have a jersey. Yeah, number 20.
So this guy, I thought interviewing him really the first year, I said, this guy's going to be a coach at Michigan someday. You could tell how much passion he had for the place. And for anybody who says, oh, we need to cut off the Michigan man shit and blah, 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 which you also see on the message board. No, man. He was here when they were winning championships, and yeah, he didn't beat Ohio State. There were a couple of bad breaks in there, so on and so forth. But I think that this is a great hire. I think he's a head coach someday, maybe even at Michigan. I think that's how hard he works. And speaking to people that I know and trust who know him very well, I think this is a guy who obviously gets this place, who works his butt off, has a chip on his shoulder because he was never the biggest guy, but he was always the toughest guy on the field. I think this guy is going to be an absolute star in this profession.
I agree with you, and he already kind of is. He's kind of one of those rising stars. He was promoted to associate head coach under Tom Allen at Indiana, which is, that culture right now is awesome. that that they have rolling down there, and they're accumulating talent. But to have the trust of his head coach there, to be in that position. You talk about the Michigan man thing. I completely agree with you, because we even talked about it when I was interviewing for this job with you guys, and we were saying how it does help to have the passion about what you're doing, and like the place that you're doing it at. So like it works. Like, it's not a flawless method. Didn't work for Brady Hoke when he came back after being an assistant, but if it matters to you a little bit more, you just can't, you can't make that up. You can't fake it, basically. So yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to be a home run. And we kind of talked about throughout the season, we're doing these tailgate shows, and man, the sideline is lifeless, after some of these losses. With Mike Hart on that sideline, I'm not saying he's going to totally control the team, and he's not the head coach of this team, but I would imagine things are at least better. It can't hurt in that regard, just the energy and the vibe around the program.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that needs to change. I've said it on every radio show, said it in just about every article. The culture needs to change. These guys have accepted losing, or they're looking at their next stop before thinking about winning for Michigan. Then get the hell out. I don't care who you are. I'm sorry, but Jim Harbaugh has to hold them accountable, because right now it feels like they're kind of being held hostage, in my opinion, by some of their better players, or have been, where, okay, well, this isn't good enough and that's not good enough. So, why am I here? I'm doing you a favor by being here. You know what? It was never that way for a long, long, long time, guys. And it wasn't that way up until probably about 2008, sadly, when the culture got changed. It's like, okay, even when Chris Perry was here and was crying and complaining, he was the Doak Walker Award winner, for you young guys who might not remember him, and a running back in the day. And Lloyd Carr brought his mom in, and because Chris Perry was complaining to his mom, and he said he's not doing the things he needs to do. And God bless her, man. She said, you know what? Get your ass in gear and do what you're supposed to do. And you know what? Block for people and get your butt in shape and quit crying. And that's what these guys need to do. That's where the culture needs to be fixed, in my opinion. You still need great players, but you need to find the great players like Michigan basketball that are all in. And you want to talk about culture, and I can't wait to talk about Michigan basketball, but you want to talk about culture. That's how you build a winner, with guys like that. One program has it right now on campus. The other one really doesn't.
Yeah. And
go
ahead, Austin.
Great place when Mike Hart was here, back under Lloyd Carr. Michigan won a Big Ten title with Hart as a freshman in 2004. He had him on the verge of a national title. In 2006, he went 4-0 against MSU, beat Notre Dame his final 2 years on campus. So Mike Hart just gets it. I don't think there's any question about that. We actually spoke with a former running back who played under Mike Hart at Indiana, and he talked about the way Hart just simply holds guys accountable. If you don't do what you're supposed to do in practice, you're simply not going to see the field on game days, and that's obviously what needs to be brought back to this Michigan culture, accountability. And there's no question in my mind that Hart, is going to hold these Michigan running backs accountable.
And who he learned from was Fred Jackson, who always held his guys accountable. And I remember when Max Martin was here, again, before your time, guys, but a little bit. But in 2005, and he was having some fumbling issues, and he was being, staying out a little past curfew and stuff like that. And I sat down with Fred Jackson in his office, and he said, "You think I'm going to put him in the fourth quarter against Ohio State or against Michigan State, a guy like that? Hell no." And he said, "You've got to prove it to me." And that's where the accountability comes into play. And if you fumble, there were times Jamie Morris, who was well before your time, he would fumble in a game and we wouldn't see him again. I remember in the Ohio State game in 1987, you put that ball on the ground, man, forget about it. That's just the way it is. So, but it's more than that. It's about the accountability factor, the culture we talked about, being a great teammate, doing what you're supposed to do, being in the right spot as a teammate. But I do know that the response from the running backs on this team too has been exceptionally positive. I think they're going to be able to hold on to it. Most of them. I don't know about Zach Charbonnet. There's been talk. It's been denied that he's going to be going back home, but you're hoping that, okay, these guys see the positive here with this hire. Nothing against Jay Harbaugh, who I think did a solid job, but you're talking about next level here, in my opinion, a guy that has played the game at the highest level, knows what he's doing, and is really going to be a great coach here.
Yeah, and I think it's a good move to keep Jay Harbaugh on staff at some, with all due respect to him, I thought the running back rotation was very weird, and I'm one of many. This past season, Haskins gets 1 carry, 1 game, 22 the next. He's clearly the best back. But he recruited a lot of this talent, and he'll be able to, I think he can still help in that regard. And it seems like they want guys that can recruit. And I like that because, if you're at Michigan, you're trying to get over the hump. They got to get back to where they were at this point. They got to win 9-10 games. But then beyond that, you're trying to get, over the hump and beat Ohio State at least 1 out of 4 years or something like that. That'd be a start. You got to have the talent. There's too many holes on the roster here. What are the expectations for you guys, just quickly, on looking at next year without knowing exactly who's going to be here, who's going to be where, and with the staff shakeup ongoing. But when you start to see the picture coming, a little more clear, what do you expect, and what do you think that they should be setting their sights on?
Austin?
They should be quite a bit better, but that's not saying much. But with that being said, I still think there were way too many problems this past year for them to be a Big Ten title contender in 2021 without going down the schedule game by game. This looks like a 7-5 team to me, maybe assuming all 12 regular season games are played. There is talent on that roster. There are positions of strength. I think quarterback could be one, running back could be one, wide receiver could be one. But at the same time, there are still a lot of holes to fill, specifically on defense when considering how bad the defense was. But if Harbaugh kind of regains some of that mojo that he used to have, at least a little bit, and does a much better job in 2021, I think this is a team who could win 7 or 8 regular season games, which would be a huge improvement from this past season's disaster.
It really depends on the front seven on defense. If they're going to let teams like Wisconsin bully them up front, even Michigan State to an extent, I don't think they touched the quarterback in that game. You've got to be able to get to the quarterback. You've got to be able to stop the run. It was a joke what Wisconsin did to them. Okay. And if you're going to allow that to happen, then you're not going to win many games. You'll be in some shootouts if the offense is better. I'm not convinced that it's going to be a ton better, depending on what we see this year. Who's your quarterback going to be? The offensive line. You're going to have another revamp there. With it'd be great if you had 5 young guys that played all year, and okay, this is their second year starting together. How many different starting lineups were there on the offensive line this year? Probably 6, 7. Literally from different positions and guys being hurt and everything else. So I think by the end of the year, that unit will be good, and I think the offense can be really good. Need a little bit more star power. You need some of those young guys like Roman Wilson and AJ Henning to emerge as deep threats. But it's the defense, and I agree with Austin. I think 7-5, 8-4. I think 8-4 is probably the ceiling. Now, I've been surprised before, and I do think there's a lot of talent. If you go strictly by rankings, which I never do, you got a lot of 4-star talent on this team, but we can see with our eyes that they are lacking in the front seven. Maybe some of these young freshmen or some of these young redshirt freshmen come on and have great years and really surprise us. And maybe the defensive linemen get bigger, stronger. Maybe they get a couple guys from the portal. It'd be nice, right? Come on, guys. There's a transfer portal. Let's go out and get some guys here and plug some holes. But, maybe they'll surprise, and maybe Jim Harbaugh gets that fire back and becomes the coach that we know that he was at least 5 years ago.
Yeah, I have him right around 8 wins. And I will say with the offensive line, there's some moving pieces, but I like what they have there. And I think it starts there. It starts on the defensive line. Aiden Hutchinson coming back, I think is something that's being a little bit underlooked. That's a huge start for your defense. I know that, there's no depth really on that defensive line. I didn't like what the linebackers did, and now Cam McGrone's gone. That might be for the better. They weren't deep at safety. It's nice to have Brad Hawkins back, but you're right about the defense. I mean, if Mike McDonald can come in and at least have it didn't look like a competent defense this year, to be honest. I know there were injuries and, Ambry Thomas was gone. It really didn't. I mean, what happened against Indiana with the offsides, and that was just ridiculous in the Wisconsin game, and you can go on and on. So it starts there. Aiden Hutchinson coming back and having the right guys in that locker room, I think, is a start, and, we'll see what they can do. I think that it will be a significant improvement from 2-4. It's just a weird year overall, and that doesn't excuse anything, but there's enough talent to where you shouldn't be getting blown out by these teams that, and losing to a Penn State team that had no life coming into that. But let's move into basketball. And we mentioned the culture a little bit. And Chris, you mentioned how, the basketball team, they should be watching that. So I was talking this week for our magazine. We're previewing some of the other sports around, Michigan athletics. I'm talking to the wrestling coach, Sean Bormet. I'm talking to Mike Bottom, the swim and dive coach. And it just kind of came up in our conversations, man, this basketball team. And Sean Bormet who went to school and was friends with Juwan Howard when they were both on campus together. He's like, yeah, I've been watching and seeing that bench. And I was like, is that something you show to your team? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. It's something that you would show to our team to, this is how you should have it on our bench. Everybody's all in. You see Jace Howard pounded on the ground, like these clips of him, incredible. So we'll start there with just how much fun they're having. And I wish there were fans in here, but that little bench area, how spread out it is, kind of gives them an opportunity to really bring their own energy, and other teams just aren't able to match it right now.
They aren't, and that's what is going to happen when you go on 36-3 runs too, right? Against top 10 teams, man. That was fun to watch. And I got to tell you, I've been blown away at, number one, how Juwan Howard has preserved the culture here. I think it was Mike Valenti who said on 97.1, and I'll be honest, there were parts of that I agreed with, not the presentation, because it came across as snarky and, Michigan's stupid and what are you doing hiring this guy? But there were parts of it where you look around the country and you think, okay, where has this ever worked? Where you've taken an NBA assistant, whether he's played at Michigan or at his school or not, and plugged him in, and it has been great. Chris Mullen, for example, at St. John's. You look at Patrick Ewing at Georgetown, and you go right down the list, and you're thinking, okay, not only that, he doesn't have any head coaching experience, so it was fair to question it, and I did, and now I'll flat out admit it. And initially, when he was throwing out recruiting offers to everybody in the top 20, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, here we go, this might be a one and done factory, and maybe he's not getting it. It was remarkable how quickly he learned, and he learned from some of his mistakes. And we knew there was going to be a growth period and a learning period. He learned quickly, and I think Saudi Washington had a lot to do with that. The holdover from the staff. I think that Phil Martelli, Howard Isley, has never recruited before. We talked to him yesterday, and he said, "Okay, I'm learning. That's one area in which I'm getting better. But leaning on those other two guys and what Juwan has done." First of all, with the X's and O's, you watch that offense, guys, and there's some NBA principles in there. I talked to John Beilein the other day. He said he would have incorporated those if he had a guy like Hunter Dickinson, who, by the way, he recruited heavily for 2 years. He said, I would have incorporated a lot of that stuff. He says it's remarkable what he's done. He's preserved the culture, and you've got guys that, he said it so many times, not I, me. These guys want to win. Look at Mike Smith, who was shooting, averaging 22.6 points per game last year at Columbia, and now he's averaging 9 and 5.6 assists, and he's all about the team. Shawnee Brown being thrilled with his role, getting 16 minutes a game when he was a scorer and a 30-something minute guy at Wake Forest. I'm blown away at how they've meshed, how much they respect Juwan Howard, the buttons he's pushed. This is as much fun as you can have watching a Michigan basketball team. And how many years did we say that under John Beilein, too? That is, in my opinion, is the ultimate compliment.
I couldn't agree more. I'm blown away with this group so far. I'll admit I had major question marks about Juwan Howard as well when he was hired, and I think rightfully so. A lot of people around the country did. But I can't believe how quickly he's gotten this thing going, and to the extent that he has. This is arguably the best team in the country right now. I don't think that's an exaggeration. You talked about the newcomers and how quickly they've bought in. Mike Smith and Shawnee Brown and Dickinson as a freshman have just been major additions for this team. Mike Smith is shooting 46% on the year. You talked about Shawnee Brown's role. He was a 3-year starter at Wake Forest, and now he's playing, 18 minutes a game, and he loves his role. Isaiah Livers talked about it after the Minnesota game. He said, you know what, we're a culture here at Michigan, and we play for our brothers, and we play for the name on the front of our jersey and not the back, and that's what it's all about. Juwan Howard has these guys bought in. It's incredible to see. It's obvious they love each other. They play for each other in a big way. That's obviously something the football program needs to start doing as well, but it's the perfect blend of veterans and youth. You look at, you have the seniors and Livers and fifth-year seniors in Austin Davis. Then you have the key youngsters in Franz Wagner, still only a sophomore, and Hunter Dickinson. So I think the staff that Juwan Howard has assembled is a big part of that. Hiring Phil Martelli, who was the longtime head coach at St. Joe's since the late 80s, I believe, was obviously a major addition. Saudi Washington, keeping him from John Beilein's staff, has been a major addition as well. So I'm excited to see what happens with this team moving forward. I don't think they'll continue playing at the level they're at right now, but that's obviously not saying much. We'll see what happens the rest of the regular season. I hope they get the rest of their games in. That's obviously a big if right now, but man, if they can keep it even close to the level they're at now, I think they're going to be viewed as one of the favorites to make the Final Four and title heading into the NCAA tournament?
The Mike Valenti thing, I agree. We all had concerns, and I think literally everybody did. Nobody was like, oh, this is just going to be smooth and everything. But he was talking in absolutes. Like he said he's not going to come in and win games in the Big Ten. Well, guess what? Mike Valenti's a diehard Spartan fan. Michigan has more wins than Michigan State since Juwan Howard's been hired. So that's how good it's been. I know he took over for a legend. I know the culture was strong, but it's not easy to do. And you've named some examples of places where guys just aren't doing it. And Juwan Howard has done just a tremendous job. You can't say enough. Literally, I mean, he couldn't have done better to this point. The 20 months that he's been in Ann Arbor. Let's talk about. Go ahead.
Real quick, I would add the humility that he's doing it with. Okay, I was in school when he was there, and I remember how much older he seemed, and he was an old soul, right? And the way he handled himself, there were a few exceptions. Young guys are going to do some dumb things sometimes, and I'm sure there are some things that he'd like to have back. However, this guy, the humility, and that's what really comes across. And I remember the day he signed his letter of intent when his grandmother passed away, and we were heartbroken. We were following the recruiting, his whole recruitment, and I asked him about that on signing day, or not on signing day, but on media day in Chicago. It was my first question. Has it hit you that because she was the one that told him to go back and get his degree, that's the reason that he was the head coach. He said, "Why do you think I was crying at the podium?" But he's just a heartfelt guy. A humble guy, and man, you just hope now that he's going to be here for some time, because that NBA teams are going to become calling. I know that he's got another son that's going to play here. I'm going to go on record right now and say that Jet Howard's going to be here as well. You hope that you can hold on to him for a while, and that this really is his dream job, that they take care of him with a nice package, a financial package. He probably doesn't need the money all that much, but you want to keep him around. If you keep him around here for 20 years, man, you're talking about, I'm riding into the sunset, guys, into retirement on a high note covering Michigan basketball.
Yeah, no doubt. And for a guy like that, money is respect in a way, because NBA teams are going to give him more. He doesn't need it necessarily, but I'm never one to say, hey, you don't need the money. That's your personal stuff. And absolutely take it if you want it. But money's respect in a lot of ways. We can talk about that with Jim Harbaugh as well, but so yeah, I mean, certainly at this point, it looks like you want him here for the long haul. There's a lot to be proven as well when you look at the NCAA tournament and actually finishing the deal here in the Big Ten. We're only 11 games in, but it could not be a better start, especially to year two. Before we go, let's talk about the defense, because that's really been the story in the last couple of weeks. The offense was outstanding early in the season. They weren't playing many people. Now they're playing better competition. They're playing better offense, and they're playing way better defense than they were playing. Starts with Eli Brooks. Hunter Dickinson isn't fouling down low, which is massive. And that was one of the things John Beilein used to always talk about. Can our bigs play defense straight up without fouling? He doesn't just stand there straight up like you remember some of the John Beilein bigs, and then the guy would score over him. Well, at least he didn't foul. No, he's playing like really good defense, contesting shots, blocking shots. And then the wings, I mean, you can't do anything. I look at this Minnesota game, which I don't know when people are watching this, but it's coming up for us here. Their wings aren't going to be able to do anything again against Franz Wagner, Isaiah Livers. Mike Smith is a better defender than I thought he was going to be, and than he was at the beginning of the year. I mean, and then Shawnee Brown's off the bench, and he frustrates the hell out of everybody. He's pressing Marcus Carr and Demetric Trice full court. You can't say enough about the way they've defended. Shout out to Sadie Washington for getting them, doing that, because last year, frankly, it was a bit of a step back after Luke Yaklich came, which isn't saying much, because he was probably the best defensive coach in college basketball. But they're locking the hell out of everybody, locking them up right now, and it's awesome to watch.
If they don't get 127 fouls like they did that one year that they played at Minnesota. Remember that, when they went up there and it was pretty much stolen from them, depending on how they call the game. But Franz Wagner is the best wing defender I've seen in college basketball this year. And that's not an exaggeration. What he does, how smart he is, when to help, when not to help, his length. If somebody gets a step on him, he's long enough to block a shot. They're smothering the passing lanes. There's nowhere to go, guys, and that's what's remarkable unbelievable about this is there's just nowhere to move, and they're smothering the defense. So Hunter Dickinson is like, I was talking to Beeline about this as well. He's like a veteran Jordan Morgan, and they're calling the shots and directing traffic where guys should be, calling it out. It's just really, it's fascinating to me to watch, because they were leaving shooters, and I think you guys saw in the early going, guys were getting too many 3-point shots. Can you believe this, that Oakland almost beat this team? I go back to that, man, and I'm thinking, holy crap, how far you came. But right now they're really dialed in, and they care about it. And you've got guys who want to win. You mentioned Shawnee Brown, Mike Smith, where they weren't playing a whole heck of a lot of defense at Columbia and Wake Forest, but they are now. And it's better. It's better than it was last year. Juwan Howard said in the offseason, our defense wasn't good enough last year, and this is what we need to fix. They've fixed it, man. It's been remarkable.
When Luke Yaklich, left after that 2019 season, I didn't know if we'd ever see Michigan play defense at quite the level that Yaklich had him at in 2018 and 2019. And to me, this is on pace with that group, if not better. I think that that's a fair statement. I would have no problem if somebody called this year's defense better than the ones we saw in 18 and 19 under Yaklich. Michigan posted a stat line against Wisconsin that I don't know if I've ever seen before. They had 9 blocks and 6 steals in that game. That's an absurd amount in one game. So Franz Wagner, it seems like, is getting multiple steals and deflections every single game due to his long arms and the passing lanes that he can get in. I think the Wisconsin's final possession of the half pretty much summed up that night when they couldn't even get a shot off. Aleem Ford had the ball with 2 seconds in the lane not far from the rim, and like I said, he couldn't even get a shot off. Several defenders were in his face. So much of defense is about effort and intensity and buying in, and it's obvious that pretty much every single player who sees the court does. There's really no weaknesses on this defense. So again, that's another credit to Juwan Howard. I was actually a little bit worried about this defense early in the year. Chris talked about that Oakland game. Michigan gave up 71 points in that game to a very, very bad Oakland team. So the amount of progress and improvement that they've made on that side of the ball in such a short time over the past few weeks is nothing short of amazing, in my opinion.
I want to mention Eli Brooks, because he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink there, taking out lead guards on the other team. He's been phenomenal. This guy, how far he's come. And I talked to his dad a couple of weeks ago. We're going to be putting a story with him. He said, part of it comes with getting stronger, and you can't get pushed off the ball like you could when you were a freshman, and it comes with confidence. And but the way he's running through screens, man, when's the last time you saw somebody pick him and shoot over him where he got picked? You just don't see it, man. He is just that committed to it. And when you have guys that are that committed to it, starting with Eli Brooks, you're going to be pretty good.
He is the head of the snake, as Juwan Howard calls him.
Exactly.
Absolutely. He's better than, I kind of hate to say this, like sophomore year, junior year, Xavier Simpson on defense. He's on par with that. I won't say better necessarily. They're different style. He kind of cuts everything off, and Xavier was just so much more quick and could, kind of get in front of you and not, give you any room. But Eli's been outstanding. And then Austin and you guys both mentioned Franz Wagner. He makes plays. My brother would text me this during the games. I'm at Chrysler, and it's like he makes plays that he has no business making. His hand will get in, like the other night it was Micah Potter posting up, his guy's on the wing. He kind of takes one step down, and Potter had no clue it was coming, strips him, and they're going the other way. It's like, if you're Wisconsin, and that's kind of stuff Wisconsin will do to you, it's like, now what can you really do? I mean, Potter's a very good big man. He had no idea that was coming, and you can go on and on. A simple entry pass to the wing, and Franz is going the other way for a dunk. It's like, that just doesn't happen, especially against a team like Wisconsin that doesn't turn it over too. So this defense is swarming, smothering is, a word you can use. And really fun to watch. They'll be, we'll see what they can do here going forward as well. It's pretty winnable stretch still coming up. And then obviously a gauntlet in February, but it's going to be fun to watch. Anything else on the Hoops team from you guys?
No, I'm excited to see what they do from here. Everybody talks about the gauntlet at the end of the year, but I'm thinking there are a lot of teams saying, crap, we got to play Michigan at the end of the year too. So
that's a great point.
Iowa and Illinois at home, no, they're not going to go undefeated, Clay. I know you saw. I said that on the message board. So but they're going to win a lot of basketball games. And, inevitably, you're going to go through a stretch where you're not playing as well. However, I think at the end of the year, this is going to be a team that's going to be right there. And again, like you said, tournament time's big. That's when he's got to prove himself. But I like this team. I like the makeup of it. I can't wait for the postseason, guys. It's a basketball school. What the hell can we say?
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself either. I don't think they're going to go undefeated for the first time since '76, the last team to do so in all of college basketball, Indiana that year. But this team's bound to go through a few slumps and dips. It's inevitable. It happens to every team every year. It'll be nothing to freak out about once they do. But man, just looking at the schedule coming up, it is super manageable. I don't have it in front of me, but I know their next several games are Minnesota today, and then Maryland, Purdue, and Indiana, all of which Michigan, I think, will be pretty clear favorites in. So they're 11-0 right now. The best start in school history is 17-0. February gets a lot tougher, but I think they're going to come pretty darn close to matching that 17-0.
Wow, watch them lose today now. Way to go.
Yeah. I know. I feel like we're just
Direct your letters to Austin Fox, care of the Wolverine.
Yeah, no kidding.
And John Beeline said, I listened to him on the Huge Show the other day. If they go, let's say they run the table, great. If they go through some adversity, then that'll help them too. So stay the course, Michigan fans. That Michigan fans don't always do that. No fan base does. Stay the course. They could lose today because of Austin. Still stick with this team. But we'll leave it there on Michigan basketball, Michigan football talk. Check us out hour by hour at thewolverine.com, promo code BLUE60, and we'll see everyone next time.